Chapter 10. Opening Night. The sign above the entrance gleamed under strategically placed spotlights. The alchemist and the anarchist in brushed copper letters that somehow managed to look both elegant and rebellious. Chloe stood on the sidewalk, taking in the line of people that stretched around the block, food critics with notebooks, influencers with ring lights, and what looked like half of Portland's hospitality industry. Second thoughts. Julian appeared beside her, immaculate in a charcoal suit that had probably been tailored specifically for tonight. His usual nervous energy was contained but visible in the way his fingers drummed against his thigh. About the bar? Never! Chloe smoothed down her dress, a sleek black number that walked the line between professional and edgy, chosen specifically to send a message to anyone who still thought she didn't belong. About whether we can handle this crowd without killing each other? Jury's out. Through the Fleurt's oscillating windows, she could see their creation in all its opening night glory. They'd fought over every detail for months, but somehow it worked, exposed brick walls softened by warm lighting, industrial bar equipment balanced by comfortable leather seating, a cocktail menu that offered everything from craft beer to molecular cocktails without apology. 5 minutes, called Marcus, their newly hired general manager, appearing in the doorway. You ready for this? Julian straightened his tie for the third time in as many minutes, as ready as we'll ever be. The first wave of guests flooded in like a tide of black clothing and expensive accessories. Chloe watched from behind the bar as Portland's cultural elite examined their handiwork with the kind of critical attention usually reserved for museum exhibitions. She spotted 3 different food bloggers already taking photos, their camera flashes creating a strobelight effect that made everything feel surreal. Chloe Darling, Victoria Ashworth, the billionaire hotel owner who'd funded their venture, swept over in a cloud of designer perfume and understated jewelry. This is absolutely magnificent. The energy, the aesthetic. You and Julian have created something truly special. Thank you, Chloe replied, accepting the air kisses that seemed to be required at events like this. We're pretty proud of it. As well you should be. The buzz around this opening has been incredible. Reservations are booked solid for the next 3 months. Victoria's smile was genuinely pleased. I've had calls from investors in Seattle and San Francisco asking about expansion opportunities. Before Chloe could process the implications of that statement, a familiar voice cut through the crowd noise. Well, if it isn't the infamous partnership that has everyone talking. Chloe turned to see a man in his 60s approaching, his silver hair perfectly styled, and his suit carrying the kind of understated elegance that screamed old money. The resemblance to Julian was unmistakable, the same strong jawline, the same intense eyes, though these were cold with disapproval rather than warm with passion. Father, Julian's voice was carefully neutral as he joined them. I wasn't sure you'd come. Your mother insisted. She has this romantic notion about supporting family endeavors regardless of their nature. Judge Blackwood's gaze swept the room with barely concealed disdain. Though I must admit, the turnout is impressive for a drinking establishment. The casual dismissal hit exactly as it was intended to. Chloe felt her jaw clench, but before she could respond, Julian stepped slightly forward. It's not a drinking establishment, Father. It's a craft cocktail program that's already being recognized as one of the most innovative in the Pacific Northwest. His voice carried new authority, the confidence he'd gained over months of building something real. Chloe and I have created something that bridges serious mixology with accessible hospitality. Judge Blackwood's eyebrows rose slightly at his son's tone. How? I'm to believe you both. Julian! A woman's voice interrupted the tense exchange. There you are, darling. Chloe's stomach dropped as Cassandra materialized from the crowd, stunning in white silk that made her look like she'd stepped off a yacht in Monaco. Her smile was perfect, professional, and aimed directly at Julian like a heat-seeking missile. Cassandra. Julian's greeting was polite but distant. I wasn't expecting you. I wouldn't miss your opening night for the world. After all, we did discuss so many of these concepts together. She gestured elegantly at the bar setup. I can see you've implemented some of our conversations about elevated service standards. The possessive we and our weren't lost on anyone within earshot. Chloe saw Judge Blackwood's expression shift to something that might have been approval as he took in Cassandra's polished perfection. Miss Whitmore, he said warmly. What a pleasant surprise. How is your father? Still on the board at the Metropolitan Opera. Oh, you know Daddy, always championing the arts. Cassandra's laugh was like crystal chiming. Though he's been so interested in Julian's work lately, he thinks there's real potential for serious cultural impact in the craft cocktail movement. The implication was clear. Julian's work only mattered when it had the right kind of approval from the right kind of people. Chloe watched Julian's face carefully, looking for signs that he was falling back into old patterns, desperate for validation from his father's world. Instead, she saw his jaw set with determination. That's generous of him, Julian said coolly. Though I'm more interested in the impact we're having on the people who actually drink here. Like Mrs. Rodriguez from Murphy's, she tried our old-fashioned variation last week and said it was the best cocktail she'd ever had. Judge Blackwood looked puzzled. Murphy's. It's Chloe's other bar, Julian explained, his voice warming as he looked at her. Where she taught me that technique isn't worth anything if it doesn't connect with real people. The simple statement was a declaration of loyalty that made Chloe's chest tight with emotion. Julian was choosing her world over his father's approval, her values over Cassandra's expectations. How democratic, Cassandra said, her smile faltering slightly. How honest, Julian corrected, and Chloe fell a little more in love with him. The evening blurred into a kaleidoscope of faces, orders, and barely controlled chaos. Despite their months of preparation, nothing could have prepared them for the intensity of opening night at Portland's most anticipated new bar. The kitchen struggled to keep up with food orders. The servers navigated crowds that seemed to multiply by the minute, and behind the bar, Chloe and Julian worked in the kind of synchronized partnership that looked effortless but required every ounce of their combined skill. 2 molecular Manhattans, 1 Murphy's Special, and a flight of local whiskeys, Julian called out, his hands already moving to build drinks with the precision of a conductor leading an orchestra. Chloe grabbed the beer taps, pouring 3 pints with the efficiency that had made her legendary of Murphy's, while simultaneously mixing a batch of margaritas for a table of food bloggers. The familiar rhythm of service, call, build, pour, serve, felt like coming home, even in their brand new space. Behind Marcus called, weaving through the crowd with a tray of empties. Table 6 wants to compliment the bartenders, says it's the best cocktail program they've experienced in Portland. Tell them thanks, Chloe replied, not looking up from the elaborate garnish she was placing on one of Julian's molecular creations. But we're just getting started. Around midnight, when the last critic had finished their notes and the final influencer had posted their Instagram story, the crowd finally began to thin. Flu found herself standing in the middle of their successful bar, surrounded by the detritus of a night that had exceeded every expectation, empty glasses, crumpled napkins, and the satisfied exhaustion that came from work well done. We did it, Julian said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of champagne. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loosened, and he'd never looked more attractive. We actually did it. Did you doubt we would? Honestly, yes. Right up until about an hour ago, I thought we might kill each other before the night was over. Julian's smile was soft, genuine. Instead, we created something beautiful. Chloe accepted the champagne, letting the bubbles tickle her nose as she surveyed their domain. The space that had been nothing but blueprints and arguments 6 months ago was now a living, breathing establishment that perfectly captured both of their philosophies, elevated but accessible, sophisticated but welcoming, innovative but grounded in genuine hospitality. Your father seemed surprised, she said carefully. My father doesn't understand what we built here, but he respects success. And this, Julian gestured around the bar, is undeniably successful. What about Cassandra? Julian's expression darkened slightly. Cassandra wants to claim credit for something she had no part in creating. But anyone who actually knows cocktails can see the difference between her sterile perfectionism and what we've accomplished here. They stood in comfortable silence, processing the magnitude of what to achieve. Not just a successful opening night, but proof that their partnership, professional and personal, could create something neither could have built alone. So what happens now? Chloe asked. Victoria mentioned expansion opportunities. Now we run the best bar in Portland, Julian said simply. We perfect our craft, we serve our customers, and we prove that this wasn't just beginner's luck. And us? What happens to us? Julian set down his champagne and turned to face her fully, his expression serious but warm. That depends. How do you feel about mixing business with pleasure on a permanent basis? Chloe's smile started small and grew until it threatened to split her face. I think I can handle it, as long as you promise not to mansplain molecular gastronomy to me anymore. Deal, Julian laughed, pulling her into his arms, though I make no promises about the proper way to flame orange peels. As I kissed in the middle of their successful bar, surrounded by the evidence of their shared vision and mutual respect, Chloe realized that somewhere between the competition and the arguments and the gradual building of trust, they'd created something neither had expected. A partnership that was both professional triumph and personal happily ever after. The Alchemist and the Anarchist was more than just a bar. It was proof that sometimes the best things happen when you stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be real.